Well, hello, sir. You have a new moon tonight. So
Is that the
you're
sliver?
interested? Yes. It's waxing gibbous.
So you can get connected to our server. I don't know if that's gonna work, but let's try.
Love, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
All right. And we will have our invocation by Councilmember Swain.
Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over our deliberations, guide us to make the best decisions for our Elgin community. Please watch our ever-growing community as it is becoming so large, and continue to watch over our first responders. Without them, we would all be lost. Help us to finalize our budget and our 5-year plan so we will spend our tax dollars wisely and reduce our tax rate for another year. And thank you for your sense of humor, for showing us what the heat will be like when we stray from your path. In your blessed name, amen.
Amen. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, as you can tell, we're having a little technical difficulty, so disregard all that. Okay, we're gonna start with our public hearing. We're gonna begin with our public hearing. And this is an ordinance, the official zoning map of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopted in chapter 46, section 46-3, revised code of ordinance, city of Elgin, Texas, 2013, and making this amendment a part of said official zoning map, to wit, to rezone approximately 9.855 acres of land from R1 Single Family District to PDD Planned Development District, located on parcels of land known by the Bastrop County Appraisal District as parcels R14760, R57239, R13484, R51150, R13488, R13490, R13472, and R73681, located on or near the intersection of West 11th Street and North Avenue C. And we have Shirley, you want to come on up, state your name?
I am Shirley Muxagamba, and I'm here in support of the planned development for the Sacred Heart Church. And I'm a member of, or I am a voting member of Ward 4, and I urge you all to please vote yes so that the city of Elgin and the county of Bastrop can finally get their church going. We've been waiting long enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Marjorie. You certainly can. You need some help, we can do that too. Okay.
Madam Mayor, Council, my name is Marjorie Modish. I'm a lifelong member of Elgin, Texas. I've been here forever, and as you can see, it's been a while. So I want to thank you, first of all, for your service to our city. All of you, you do a lot, and a lot of it's behind the scenes. And I'm in Ward 4, have been for about 25 years, and thank you for your responses to me when I have asked you things throughout this time. Tonight, I'm here for really two things. And the first thing is, I want to know what the city's policy is on homelessness. Is there something that can be done about that? I have asked my council people, and they told me that this first must be addressed by the property owners. I specifically talk about the ones that are behind the old 7-Eleven store, right across the driveway from the Pizza Hut and other businesses out there. They've been out there now for quite some time, and it gets the area where they are gets larger and larger almost every day. 7-Eleven, as we know, has been out of business for a long time. That building has been vacant. There's not even a number on that building for me to address the 7-Eleven Corporation. I have tried to do that, and as I go through trying to get to the head of the corporation, I find that 7-Eleven is not a corporation on its own, but it's owned by many, many, many conglomerates. And so this building has just been sitting, and I have called the people whose number is on the door there, and it's been their number only for a long time. When I speak with them, they tell me that the building has been sold. Guess who? Dunkin' Donuts. The building has been sold for over a year to Dunkin' Donuts. And I have now tried to also go to the corporation of Dunkin' Donuts. Well, that's not easy either. Most of the places are just owned, they're franchises, and really you don't get to anybody who's the head of Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know what their plans are for the building.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. The public hearing is about Sacred Hearts. I just don't want you to use up all your 3 minutes talking about Dunkin' Donuts, that's all. But the purpose of the public hearing is strictly related to Sacred Hearts application. That we have public comments up later, but if you want to say something about Sacred Heart, I don't want you to use it. See, there's your 3 minutes.
That was not my understanding.
The public comment comes right after this. I just called your name too early, Marjorie, so we can call you back up again when we get to the public comment.
Well, I thought you had called my name.
I did, but I did it too early. I'm sorry.
So I will come back to the mic, is what you're saying?
Yes, you can come back in just a few minutes. Okay, so those for the public hearing, I'm sorry, I made a mistake on that one. Avis?
Hi, I'm Avis Curitan. My land actually borders what is now the Catholic Church land. And I've just got a couple questions. If this will, I don't know what they're going to build. I don't know what they're going to do with the land. Anything besides the church, I don't know. But I'm wondering if this will affect the utility easement at the back of the property, because it's supposed to go through to 11th Street. And I mean, there's no way. It's so totally blocked and nobody ever cares or worries about it. And the other thing is, without my knowledge, somebody came into my pasture and put all kinds of metal tags on a bunch of trees. Never did figure out who did it or what it's for. I mean, I just left them. Anyway, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Linnell Wilson?
Thank you for the opportunity. I have two questions. Avis has already mentioned one of them. I'm wondering how this proposal to rezone will affect the right-of-way that's supposedly behind our property. And I'm a neighbor to Avis. The other question I have, and it may take engineering to answer, is how do we determine what this rezoning will do, what effect it might have on our property values and the taxation on those pieces of property? Thank you for the opportunity.
Ma'am, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Can you see the drawing? Can you see the drawing on the map?
Come this way. Come this
Well,
way.
you can see it over there.
Or look up
Whichever
right
way you
now.
can look up.
So
I see that.
you get the bearings where they're building it up by 12? Where's your property? Is it over here or to the
Yeah, it's on
back?
Avenue C,
It's on Avenue C.
Okay,
down the way a little bit. You had it about right.
About right here. no, I'm just trying to give everybody an idea what
You
we're
had it
talking
about
about.
right up,
Up here?
down this way a little bit.
I think I'm number two on the,
That's, let me see.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, that's all, thank you.
yeah, they're next door neighbors.
is that gonna be on the website?
Oh, we can make it available to you, ma'am, sure.
Okay. Is there any other public comment, public hearing, I'm sorry, on that one?
Can we talk without having to sign up?
Or you,
You need to sign up.
so we'll know.
Just,
Well, I'm sorry, if you're speaking on this project, this public hearing, you don't have to necessarily sign up for that.
Yeah, it's about.
Okay.
Okay. State your name and your address, since I don't have it here.
My name is Mark Clark. My wife and I live at 202 West 12th. Pretty much the worst place to own property as far as all this is concerned. Be it that now we have the church behind us and to the side of us, understanding that, somehow they get to get the street is what they had, we've been told by them. And there's a lot of public, there's infrastructure underneath that street. And it just doesn't seem right that y'all would allow them to have the street C. And even any part of 12th Street. And they're so proud that they get to do this. I mean, they basically told us that in not the nicest way. And we've lived there for 30 years. And the church has been not the friendliest to us. There's plenty of friendly people. But as an organization, it's a business as far as I'm concerned. And they say, we're not, we won't build a privacy fence there. We don't have to. What do you mean? You're a business. You're gonna put a parking lot right by our fence. 6 feet, 10 feet, whatever. I mean, how nice is that to go out in your backyard and look at what is to come? And, I don't know what the proposal is for the 5 acres behind. And, I was told a few years back by somebody who was an elder at the church that the church was given 50 acres at one time, and they probably still own it, to build a new church for Elgin. It was a little outside of town. And I've always thought, why couldn't they have built there without abusing our little neighborhood, which there wasn't much left of it, but it was still a little neighborhood. And when the owner died, there goes that house, because that house was given to the, I can't think of her name right now, when she sold the corner house there on B. And they overpaid for it, and that's why she sold. They way overpaid for that 5 acres. And the people that were renting were trying to buy it themselves. When we finally said, I guess they broke us, we went to say, hey, you want to buy our house? And they're, no, we spent too much. We could only offer you less than market value. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Just for the record, Avenue B is the street that's being closed, not Avenue C.
Did I say C? Oh, I'm sorry.
And I'll just say, we'll address all your questions when we get to the agenda items.
Okay, that's it for, okay, we close the public hearing, and now we're open for public comment. Margie, I'm sorry, now you can get up and,
Wait just a minute, ma'am. I'll just say, everything you said's still on the record. And I can tell you that the city's already responded to those concerns at the 7-Eleven store, and they've begun cleaning all that up now. The Dunkin' Donuts project is being built. They've submitted a project. We're reviewing it right now. And it'll be a good project when they rebuild that building, but we're aware of everything you said about that area. There's not particular rules relative to homelessness, and one of the issues is if it's private property and the owner doesn't object, there's nothing the police or the city can do about that. But when we got complaints about Dunkin' Donuts, we reached out through our contacts to the Dunkin' Donuts, through the new owners, and they've begun to clean it up right now. I don't know if you've been down there lately, but the back area, some of it's cleaned up. We're on the lookout. They've already told us that nobody's allowed to be on there, so there won't be any people sleeping or staying down there anymore. And yes, it's a shut-down building. It'll be under construction soon, so it's not gonna look great generally down there, but I didn't want to make you get up and say all that again, if that's what, that answers your question.
And she had two things.
Mr. Mathis, I'm not going to repeat myself.
Well, that's why I was trying to answer your
I also was understanding that when someone was speaking in this capacity, that the council would not necessarily have any recommendations or any answers at this time. Am I right about that?
We're not, the council doesn't engage, or the staff, with people on a back and forth conversation, but we are permitted to answer brief and simple questions, and that's what I'm saying. Everything you talked about, there's no disagreement.
If the council will, each one of you will just drive down the entire driveway down into the Holiday Inn, you'll see that there is another camp also going up right there. There's a lot of trash. And so, if you'll just go down that way and just look, you'll see. Now, I have one other thing. Am I permitted?
You have 3 minutes, right?
There is a store on the corner of Main and 2nd Street. It's a vape shop. I hate the bars. I hate the bars on those windows. That's just my opinion. And I know that everybody has their own opinion. And I've also been told, reliably told, that the bars are not going to harm in any way the building because they are not connected to the foundation of the building. So I want to know why they were permitted to be put up. And then my second thing is that the flag that is in the window, that's a flag that has been tampered with as a part of our Texas independence, the Come and Take It flag. Well, it doesn't say come and take it. It has quite another condensation there. So that's just my opinion. Thank you for your time.
thank you. Okay. Who's it on the public comment? Okay, our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. We actually have some rather big discussion items on business items on the agenda tonight, so I don't really have anything specific to report on. You have in your packets the quarterly report from the EDC and the Plan Commission. But unless anybody had a question on the items not on the agenda, that's the extent of my report.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which is.
Wait a minute, one last thing. We're still on for budget work session next Tuesday, or do we still?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you. And then we'll be first meeting in September, for the record, is when there'll be the first public hearing on our tax rate and budget here at the council meeting. Okay, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. All right, so on the consent agenda, we have the city council regular meeting minutes for August the 1st, the city council work session meeting minutes for August the 8th, a resolution of the city authorizing the city manager to approve professional fees within the Bard Williams Construction LTD related to the Elgin Police Department Station project. We have a resolution of the city of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Cecily Whitley for lease of billboard at Highway 290 and 11th Street. And then we have a resolution of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopting the library collection development policy and making certain findings related thereto. Then we have a resolution of the city of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute an interlocal agreement with Bastrop County to support the 911 Geographic Information System database management. Anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, it's been moved. And second by, thank you. I'm gonna get that name right one of these days. Okay, we'll begin with Councilman Dennis.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes?
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Love, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to our new business. An ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopted in chapter 46, section 46-3, and I'm not going to read all those parts over again. I think we got it the first time I read it. Yeah, just jump into that.
Okay, Mayor, this is the item we just had a public hearing on that is relative to the Planned Development District zoning change for, in support of the Sacred Heart project. This is the tax maps for the parcels is the property owned by the church actually represents a number of different parcels. This is got the best picture I could off their website of what the building is supposed to look like when they build it. We've been told that they're building 3 churches on the west side of, or I mean on the east side of Austin that will all be the same. I forget where the third one is, but the other one is in Manor. So I'm gonna know what the church is gonna look like. It's that one you can see off of 290 in Manor. They're building an identical church to this. So what's important to understand about this proposal is this council has gone through this before, is this is what Planned Development District zoning is different than conventional zoning. And what it represents is instead of establishing zoning on a property and then that property owner can use it or build whatever they want within the context of those general parameters set by zoning, Planned Development District zoning is a specific agreement between the city and the property owner to build a very specific project, which is good for the city and the neighbors and neighboring property owners in the sense that we get a very specific idea about what that property owner can build and what they can't build. And in exchange for that, the city generally achieves a partnership with the developer where they build some things that they don't have to build more, they exceed the standard requirements, and in exchange for a commitment from the city to make some concessions on our part. So I think it's frankly, I find it a really exciting project. The church is obviously very much growing. Just to give you some perspective, the old sanctuary had seating for 200 people. The new sanctuary will have seating for 600 people. The church now has to have multiple mass at multiple times. Well, they won't have to do that in the future. So we've talked about this with Sacred Heart for 3 or 4 years, they've been talking about this project and working on acquiring different pieces of property, and their plans have changed at different times, but now they're ready to move forward with this project as is shown. Truthfully, unlike most commercial developments where there's a lot more, frankly, a lot more money in play, there's not a whole lot of incentives being given, and there's not a whole lot being received by the city. But I do think one of the important things to understand is that this, the plan that we're committing to is this specific plan. The church has to build this. They can only build this. If whatever their plans change after tonight, they cannot build anything different than what you're seeing here without coming back to the council. So what's key to us, and when I say us, I guess I have full disclosure, my house borders this property as well. My backyard backs up to it, so. But what's key to us is, as is shown on this map, there's approximately a 5-acre piece to the back, which, as you can see, nothing's planned for. So when the council approves this deal tonight, the church will not be able to build anything on that property without coming back to the council and having another public hearing and another discussion. It's also important as what's, I think, for neighboring property owners, you can see the green line that circles the property. That's a landscaping easement, so of 10 feet. So inside their side of the fence, they can't build anything closer than 10 feet unless it's grass or bushes or something like that to screen that off. This feature we think is good here to this property. It's a nice little pocket park that the church plans to build here that'll be available to the public to use. The sanctuary will be obviously in the middle. That's the yellow part with all the parking in the back, which will frankly help the neighborhood in the sense that there won't be as much on-street parking, I don't think, once they do that. Now, part of the PDD contemplates a dead-end section of Avenue B that is right here in this area that's a public street today. The church has acquired all the property on both sides of that street, and because Avenue B really functioned primarily as an access point back to this property when there was a house there, but now and that was a problem with the church from the beginning. Had they not acquired that property, there's not a scenario where they could have cut off access to that property, but now that they own it, they can do that. So to meet their parking requirements and to make their project work, staff is recommending in the PDD that this street be closed and deeded to the church. Of course, they'll have to pay for it, but it just helps the project round out. And I think it's a really good project for the city. I think it's a really good infill project in that the church has a long established history here in Elgin, and they could have went out on the highway and got another greenfield site, but they chose to stay in their home where they're at and make an investment in the community. And obviously there'll be street and sidewalk improvements out here across from the school district, from the elementary school there. So all in all, I think it's a good project. We're satisfied that, like all PDDs, that we've recommended to the council that it's a more, what the city's getting out of the deal in general is more than what we could achieve, because the church could build a project very similar to this without a PDD. And frankly, it would, in my opinion, undermine the quality of the project. By us working together, though, I think we'll achieve a project that's better for the church, better for the city, and I think it, frankly, a real important benefit for neighboring properties owners is to know with confidence what's going to happen and what's not going to happen on the remainder of the property. So with that, Bo, did I leave anything out? reference it, because you're.
Yeah, because
we're gonna have a few
these
questions.
neighbors that are neighboring need to hear that.
Jotted down as many of the questions as I could, so hopefully I answer them. For public infrastructure, they'd be required to submit to the city easements, as you would have anywhere across any kind of development for the water and sewer in there. Those easements are at their risk, so if the city did have to access those utilities and they did have to tear into their parking lot, they would be responsible for the cost of putting the parking lot back, from a public utility infrastructure standpoint. For the residential buffer, it is a 10-foot landscape buffer. The actual PDD, if you read it in section, I think it's 4.1, and I can read it if you would like, so that everybody can hear exactly what's required there. A minimum 6-foot high masonry fence or a 10-foot landscape buffer shall be provided between adjacent residential properties and parking areas and drives. The landscape buffer shall be planted with new sod or turf. 1 native mid-sized evergreen tree and 3 native short trees shall be provided every 40 feet across the buffer yard. The fence line shall be cleared of any understory shrubbery and debris, and the existing trees to remain. All new planting, landscape improvements shall follow the above pattern, except in cases where new planting would conflict with otherwise healthy, viable existing trees. All the exterior lighting has to be hooded and has to be face down to not provide light pollution on existing residential properties. And the maximum light level to adjacent residential properties is listed as 0.25 foot candles. As far as parking, they've met the requirements for parking. They'll have detention. Impervious coverage has been limited on the entirety of the development to 65%, where typically at a commercial or whatnot, it would be unlimited. And again, like Tom said, the purchased property, I believe it used to be the Bogart property, that is not part of the PDD. It needs to remain in its existing condition with the exception of landscape buffer around it.
I have a question. Tom explained about Avenue B, but 12th Street wasn't addressed. Could you explain about 12th Street?
So there's a small portion of 12th Street that basically is adjacent to either side of the church's property. That is being conveyed to. And then there is a portion you can see of 12th Street that will be rebuilt and repaved, as shown there on the drawing as well, in addition to sidewalks along the one side that would still have residential along 12th Street.
So then the business or the other side, it'll still be public and they'll actually have improvements with sidewalks.
Correct. And then those alleyways are not being conveyed. They're not part of the project. Any access off of those alleyways is still there.
Thank you.
This did go before P&Z as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
They did.
Unanimously
recommend
recommend.
council through their workshop at P&Z.
Thanks, man.
The only question I'm not able to answer is the metal tags on trees on private property. I don't know who that would have been. I could assume it was their surveyor got across the property line. They are required to do a tree survey, and they may have gone beyond where they should have gone.
Yeah, well, I'll say this about that. I think part of that too is having a crystal clear understanding about exactly where your property line is. Because one of my neighbors on Lake Terrace had the impression that 3 or 4 of these trees were on her property, and because that's what they always thought. So I just make sure, you know. All right, good.
And you
So
heard that
I-
that is required, right?
Yes, and I'd rather have trees than a concrete wall.
So, Bo, are the 2 structures, I don't know how to describe this, I guess where the park is, are those being demolished?
There is a future structure that would go there where the park is that's delineated, but you're talking about existing?
Yeah, like when I'm looking
The
at,
existing structure, yes.
It's coming
okay.
down.
Those would be coming down.
Yes.
what used to be the Knights of Columbus.
No, it's the one behind.
Oh.
And there's one at the corner, right, they sit here. One's on 12th and one's on Avenue
Well,
B,
I
right
guess
there
that
at
one's
the
already-
corner.
That one's already gone.
Yeah.
That's right.
See, if you were here for a long time, that was the Bracewell House, but it's already been taken down.
Okay.
I assume it's in council's packet as well. There is kind of a sketch specifically with the
Oh,
pocket park.
Yeah, I forgot that. I've got that here. Yeah.
So is this corner Avenue C?
You go back,
Back up.
you go back one,
Where the
where that
retention
blue
is?
is down
That's-
there,
no,
that
no.
is around that area,
That's 11th and Avenue C?
right there.
Let's get my bearings.
Not quite all the way to Avenue C.
So you know, the only one that is not included is the Sutton House, so that's not included. So you know where the drainage ditch is, where it dips down
Yeah.
when you're going? That's pretty much your line.
Okay, so Marcia's house there. in the
It's-
corner is-
Not included here.
Okay, all right, got it.
So what's the, what's the timeline in the development agreement for the future building? Or is there one?
I don't think there is one. There's not.
No.
There's no, that's the other part, these agreements don't include any specific time frame to build. But it does, as I said, it gives us the confidence that whenever they do build, this is what they're gonna build. This is the only thing they can build.
What about the landscaping, the additional trees and all that? That has to be done when?
That's part of the
It's part of
construction.
the project, yeah, so when they submit their plans on the sanctuary, that will be part of the review process to ensure that they've addressed all of those. So essentially, this becomes a document in addition, they have to meet all of the city's landscape ordinance requirements as well in addition. Those will all be reviewed when they submit their actual construction plans, which have not been submitted today.
So this shovel-ready project, or when do they start moving dirt?
I can't speak for the church. I would assume that just through conversations and assuming the PDD is passed, they're gonna plat a lot of the properties together. So it's one singular property, and then they would be moving forward with submitting construction plans to the city for review. And then the building plans would also go to the city for review.
We've been told they're ready to start and to move forward, and, frankly, I thought they would have started by now when they tore down the old building. They're really cramped now, so I would assume they're really motivated to get going.
What's the timeline to completion, once they get started?
There is none.
I don't think they've provided that. In general, we have a better idea when they submit the construction plans.
Is the structure in the back of the property, kind of that pasture, is that
house?
occupied?
The
Yeah.
home, yes, it's occupied. Well, they're preparing it for occupancy, but it's a single-family residence.
Where does access to that?
Where they achieve access through the church.
That's all on them.
It's their property.
Is the church's property?
Yes, all of that back there is the church's property. It has to stay as is.
I think that's what they're doing.
Okay, any other questions? No more questions? Would you like to entertain a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to approve the motion as presented, because I don't want to read all those Rs either.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to approve, and let's begin with Mayor Pro Tem.
Frazier, yes?
McShane, yes?
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Love, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Motion carries.
I'll just share with everybody all this, everything you've seen on the screen tonight is available on the city's website right now. Just go to the council meeting packet and you can get all of this plus a copy of the development agreement itself.
Okay. Moving on to the next one, a resolution of the City of Elgin authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with G. Hyatt Construction to construct Veterans Memorial Park expansion and making certain findings relative thereto. And I assume Amy's coming forth to talk about.
Well, we're gonna do the basic runs through. Oh, you just need to sit up here with Amy. So this is, as the council knows, Veterans Park is a really important project and component to our 21A certificates of obligation funding that we started, obviously 2 years ago. But since then, this project has grown significantly. And when I mean significantly, I mean our plan's been about the same, but the staff and the community has actually stepped up, and we've been able to secure additional funding for this project. So we're here tonight to award the bid to start on Block A of this plan for the Veteran Park extension, but seems like most of these plans these days, we have a little budget challenge. We came in over budget, and we're going to talk about it here in a minute. But this is, I'll go back here for a minute. I'm sorry. If you're not familiar with the project, we've divided it in 4 different blocks, A, B, C, and D. And where the construction plan is to take care of them as we go. What we're going to talk about tonight is Block A, a little bit more than just Block A, but that's our target to try to get this the project started and get this part going. In June, the council had reviewed with, or the staff had reviewed with council the plan that we were going ahead with, that we put out for bid, and which is what we're contemplating awarding the contract on tonight. So our goal was basically to complete the area in green. It's a little more than Block A, and that's what the bid and how we proceeded has been predicated on. Unfortunately, the bids came in a little higher than what we unfortunately anticipated, and you all have got a copy of this, a hard copy of this we left at your packet. So just to run over real quickly, in the end, the total funding we have for this project now is just under 1.6 million. That's 600,000 from the COs, but we also received some generous donations and grants, fundraising in the gala. So we've been able to bump that number up to 1.6 million, also with council's approval to use a portion of our ARPA funds to help make this a bigger and better project. So this spreadsheet here on the bottom shows how the bids basically came in, and our kind of firm costs are $159,000 for consulting services, engineering. You remember we ordered a very unique and special train playground item that'll be a kind of a center point of the project, and have ordered that. It's on order, but that's about $350,000. And then the base construction project is that we're contemplating award tonight is just under $850,000. Now the other items on this list show playground landscaping. These are items. I'll back up a little bit. So that's the base bid that we shaved down as much as we thought we could. Similar to what we did with the police station, however, the staff came to consensus that we couldn't recommend going ahead with this project without adding a few different items and figuring out a different way to reduce costs. So the board in place surfacing, that was an item that we contemplated a while. That this is a continuous service under the playground. Won't be mulch material. It'll be the same material we're putting in the new playground at Thomas Park and Morris Park, sorry, I can't remember that, at Morris Park. It also, the important part about it is with the new this type playground surfacing, it makes that playground handicap accessible, where obviously mulch would not, so we think it's important we go that cost. The landscape berms are also important, fencing, site fencing, and then utility allowance. These are all issues that we've decided the city can directly source those items out ourselves, and so that's why they're not part of the contractor's contract, but we'll be dealing with each one of these items with city staff. So adding in all those costs, that's what brings us down to the bottom down here of just over 1.6 million, which is about $23,000 over our target. That is obviously, I think, a reasonable cost for the project, and it won't be difficult for us to absorb that much in excess CO fees. I think we'll have some savings there. Now, the important thing for council to understand tonight, in order to hit that number, which we have from the beginning with our CO projects, we've always, the council was committed to making sure we tried to hit the costs that we had set aside for each project, and that's caused us to have to come down on some of these projects and make final decisions at the end about whether it's mostly important that we hit the number or we build a project that we think the public wants. So for starting the discussion tonight, we've set this at the 1.613 number as what we think the consensus of the staff is that that's the minimum. That's the minimum that we can recommend to you to get the same basic project we want to see down there at Veterans Park. Unfortunately, what it means is the items listed on the spreadsheet to the right, however, were cut from the original plan, which means that 1.613 number does not, there's no pavilion, no outdoor pavilion, that's the roof, right? The roof and the structure. The base bid has the basic flooring, but without any of the structure or shade. The playground structure, shade structure was also taken out at $21,000. And then one item that I think in particular that we should think about is both the ribbon cutting and extending the fence adjacent to the park along the right-of-way. Initially, we had the initial project talked about just fencing each block as we went, but now we feel pretty strongly that it would be wise for us to install now fencing across all the full length of all 4 parks. And so for the first stage of the park, even though we wouldn't be building the other 3, it would give the good visual of what the park is going to be, and not to mention the safety feature that it would add to that. And as well as that, a ribbon curb, which basically means a concrete underneath that fence, which would anchor the fence instead of just putting it into the ground. So those items, about $35,000 to add that. And then, as we had talked about as well, we had started out thinking that we could extend this project more into Block D over here and do some of this work. But to hit our number, we've cut all of that work out, and that was an additional $100,000. So that is one that I think the staff feels like we can live with and wait for the next phase of funding to get into that project. But we'd like council to strongly consider adding the additional $161,000. You can see this number here, 161,576 is the total of the top 4 items there. Would include structure, the pavilion structure, and the fencing, as we've talked about. We're confident that between the amount of parkland fees that our new developments are generating, and as well as master development fees, the council would have, we'd have those funds to access for any cost overruns. And then, like I said, I think as we get closer to completing all the projects funded through the 19 COs, there may very well be enough money left in that fund to absorb this additional 160,000. So that's basically where we're at on the project. We're ready to award this bid tonight and get started and have it open and operating by next spring. So, Amy, is there anything else you want to add, or Bo, if I can get it on? Elizabeth, do you want to? I don't want to. Okay, thanks. I don't want to leave you out. So basically, we're here to answer any questions. It's an exciting project for us, highly visible downtown. We're really, it's really, I think, important. Clearly, evidence has shown the community supports it. The fact that Amy and Elizabeth have worked so hard to raise other funds, I think shows that it's a project people want. We want to make sure we build the right project. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So I know you said it a while ago, Tom, but where would this additional money come from?
So we'll have, I guess, basically 3 options. As you know, we're generating significant funds from new development, and those developments, as they progress, they're committed to paying what we call master development fees. Master development fees are totally unencumbered cash that the city council can spend however they want on anything. Some of those developments also contribute parkland dedication fees. Instead of, there's park construction or parkland dedication requirements in every development, but sometimes developers, they have the option of donating money to this fund instead of building the park in their development. The council has full discretion over those funds, how to spend them as well, except we can only spend that on parks projects, but this would be eligible for that. And then in the end, the COs we issued, the 28 million, 15 million we did for general government. After we get all those projects we started with done, there may be money left over there. Again, council would have total discretion. The way we borrowed that money, this would be an eligible expense too. So between those, we're confident there'll be at least enough to fund this.
We can't wait to see, I'm all for parks, but we can't wait to see if we have that extra money before we start shelling out extra
Sure,
money.
we can. But I would tell you this, for example, we know Harvest Ridge will be making they owe us a significant payment coming up before the end of the year for master development fees. We know of at least 2 different developments that are going to be paying at least $50,000 into parkland dedication fees in the next few months. So I guess the only way we wouldn't have money in those funds if all the houses stopped getting built. So, but yes, we can wait. I mean, to me, that's what the 1.6 number's about. We have that much money. We can go ahead with that and wait to do the rest if that's what council wants to do.
And then the rest are what's on the right.
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean by the rest. Correct.
What,
But just as long as we understand, that means no roof on the pavilion, that means no shade structure over the playground.
And by the time we go back to it, will the cost us on it?
The cost is my concern, as well as the
The cost
material
will go
supply
up.
and the waiting for that.
Yeah. Yep.
what,
Double every time we wait.
What is the fence? I guess the idea is to fence it off so people can't access it?
Kinda, it's a safety feature, I guess personally, I like the fact that it'll,
Oh, it's just on the track, it's not around the whole parcel?
oh, no, but we'll go on both sides of the track.
Yeah, yeah,
So
okay, sorry,
it'll,
got it.
To me, people will be able to visualize where the next phases are going that way too, but it is an important safety feature.
Got it. And then, am I understanding correctly that Block D, everything in Block D, I don't know if this is true, is everything in Block D 103,000? Or just those specific things? Nature play,
Okay. This one.
Is that blue area, it's not the very end, but it's a formal dog park, but the rest of it.
so all that blue area.
Part of this plan was that it's long been planned that Avenue B would be closed there at the tracks. And so we're kind of getting that done with this wave of it, and that's why it takes in Avenue B. And we've done a lot of sidewalk work down there and everything already, so it's queued up to reach over into that next block, although just a little bit as far as the park goes.
And it also, Elizabeth was going to point out, it provides the ADA accessible route into that next section of the park.
So is it mostly landscape or is hardscape in there or what?
It's sidewalk, irrigation, landscaping, the things that you see, the curb sidewalk.
Amy?
It's a lot of hardscape work, sidewalk, and the ADA accessible component. And then you have irrigation and the nature play area itself, which maximizes the trees that are there. But if you don't do that, you just stop where the green stops, and you have the first block.
And that remains gravel.
That area would, you'd stop where the green stops, and that area would be just as it is today.
Well, I'm looking forward to taking my son to the park. But I will tell you, if it's a summer like, next summer like it is, we will not be going to the park because there will not, if there's not any shade, that's a major concern for, I think. me and a
After
lot of
32 days, 100 degree
people. Yeah, we had a
weather.
little cold front today,
Where?
this morning.
And tomorrow morning.
Okay, so, we need two things then. We need one to say whether or not we're gonna put that money to that, and then to approve.
Yeah, I think
The award.
I think specifically to award the contract, that's what the resolution does.
Okay.
But I think we'd also want council to stipulate the additional costs up to this 1.6 million, these costs here. And then if the council's so inclined to add any of these items over here, that would probably do that in one motion to approve the resolution with whatever other stipulations you're inclined to make.
Okay.
So the 264 is without the bold line, is that correct?
The 264 is without Block D.
It's
Without block
with,
T.
it's with,
I mean, I'm sorry, it's with Block D. The 161 is what we think is most important, frankly, that we add.
The shade structures, okay.
Right, the fencing and the shade structures.
so, and then back to, sorry, to keep going back,
Oh, I see what, okay. Funny math.
so essentially, I'm just clarifying, the 264 could essentially get Block A and D almost completely done. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, almost.
Because which of the piece, that I guess
Essentially
the
and
dog
almost.
park wouldn't be done?
Right, that's right.
fence up and let the dogs run around and grab them? No?
No.
But that last block is not gravel, it's grass, actually.
Yeah, I was mistaken.
Between B and A is grass.
I'd like to see us funded.
Yeah, I agree with Lisa's concern, but I think, in my opinion, losing the court of straight up material cost. So I would motion that we do it with the additional 161, 576, and 7 to be added to that.
So this will be for everything except for block B, correct? Okay.
Right.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, my motion would be to do the complete project, the total of 264, 611. So, yeah.
Plus the 160.
Right. Yeah. Same thing, same different.
Wait a minute, say that again.
Yeah, 'cause you said two different things.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right. I'll start with the resolution. I motion that we approve the resolution for the city manager to execute the agreement. So I'll start there.
Okay. And then you're gonna,
You can
The
go ahead.
second part to that motion is that we approve the additional expenditures to complete the shade structures, the fencing, the ribbon curb, and all that.
And block
And all the rest of it, the 264.
That's the total, yes.
So what's the total you come up? Did you add it?
264, 611, 06.
Plus the 1613, okay. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's
Yeah,
one of
I
these.
think there's some,
So,
The whole thing. Yeah,
yes,
everything.
it does, yes. It does include the pavilion cover. The 264 is the whole number. And I apologize for the copies that it's hard to read.
That's it, and it's, I guess I'll just, Arthur, what you're asking just dovetails a little bit into our conversation about the budget. Just keep in mind that we've talked about, my approach on the budget is to keep our operating expenses where the revenue will cover that. These master development fees, the county line road fees, we're gonna have different pockets of money that council's gonna have the ability to access and spend at their discretion on these projects. So just as long as we keep in mind, if we spend a whole lot on this one, then we may not have enough on the last one. It's not an unlimited amount, but I'm satisfied, we can cover that, without a lot of pain, but, it's, I guess if council members have a number of other projects in mind, we need to make sure we have enough to do them all, but this part, yeah, we can, I'm confident we won't have any trouble covering it.
I will second his motion, confirming that it includes the 1.6 and the $264,000.
all right. It's been moved in second, and we will begin with Councilmember Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes?
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Love, yes.
Okay, it's been,
And
motion
Good.
carries.
Thank you.
would vote yes too.
Right? I was like, didn't he not say that?
Vote. Oh,
Oh, we don't know why you keep trying to go back there. Oh, okay, my bad. My bad. See,
what he does, he goes back there and
he
hides.
keeps going, yeah. Gotta sit in front of the church.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so the next thing we have is number 3. A resolution for the city of Elgin, Texas, approving a development and consent agreement with Lawn Farm Investment LLC.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another big development project that we've talked briefly with council about in the past. It's been on the discussion table for a little while, but now we're ready to bring the project forward and recommend this development agreement. I don't know if everybody's generally familiar with the Lund Tract, what we call the Lund Tract. It's out north of the city limits, but it's a piece of property that actually has frontage on both 95 and County Line Road. We've shown it previously. This is one of their initial concept plans, but you may recall that we've shown this on previous maps, and this kind of gives you some, get your bearings here about where it is in relation to Harvest Ridge and the central part of town. This is a development agreement that includes a number of concessions on the city's part and on the developer's part. We've followed a model that we've been very successful with in the past through our agreement with Brixton and Harvest Ridge and Trinity Ranch. The basic numbers are it's 570 acres. The concept plan calls for over 1,800 single-family residential homes, and then another almost 650 multifamily homes for a total of 2,500 total LUEs. The project as planned includes 9 acres of land developed for retail commercial development. You'll see that's out on the 95 frontage, and then 100 acres of parkland. As we've done with the other project, it includes 2 acres of land to be donated to the city for a public safety site. The plan calls for 7 linear miles of trails. And then, of course, Lund Farm plans to build a high-quality project. One thing is we continue to see more of the newer developers come in. We feel like they acknowledge that certainly Harvest Ridge and some of the other developments that are being built now are setting the standard for amenities and quality. And so we fully expect this project to be comparable to those projects. So this is the basic concept plan. As you can see, it's a uniquely shaped piece of property, has a lot of floodplain in it. But the developers have come up with this conceptual plan that shows the commercial area out here fronting on 95 and then the residential areas. The primary elements of the business deal we make here is the city agrees to the actual creation of the MUD district. As we know, as council knows, that all the MUDs are not, this MUD is an ETJ MUD, so it's not in the city limits. Residents there won't pay city taxes, but no city services are provided. We also commit to not annex the property for a specified period of time, although part of the deal includes a limited purpose annexation through a strategic partnership agreement, where what we've done with others, where the city will actually annex the commercial area for purposes of collecting sales tax. So although that property won't be in the city limits, the city will actually receive the sales tax generated by any businesses that are built in this project. And the conveyance land for public safety, although there's a commitment to build for 5 years. We just want to continue to emphasize again with folks that as a MUD will be fully responsible for every service, every piece of infrastructure, streets, roads, street lighting, water, wastewater, every part of all of those services are totally provided and funded by the MUD and the residents that live there, and there will be no cost to the city. In this particular agreement, it's fairly unique as opposed to the other MUDs. We'll actually be providing wholesale water services to the MUD, and then they'll distribute and charge their customers and collect that money, but we'll have one master meter that will provide water to the whole development. Similarly, but we've done in other areas, we have a fairly standard wastewater agreement with them, or these are items later on the agenda after this, but the agreement calls for, in wastewater, again, it assures that the developer of the MUD will basically pay for all costs associated with receiving wastewater services from the city. They have to build their system within the development. They have to build the line to connect that system to our existing system. And like Brixton, they are committed to a prorated share of a new wastewater treatment plant. I'm going to pause here a little bit, spend a little more time to spend on this. This development, like Brixton, the agreement contemplates that they will pay the full cost for building a wastewater treatment plant to the size, whatever size they need. So we actually see this project as starting out, will likely tie into the existing system and flow to our existing plant. But as part of our agreement with them and Brixton, the city will have to soon start construction on our second wastewater treatment plant. At that time, whenever we do make that plant available, the MUD will be responsible for building a transmission line to that plant to connect them to that. But the Lund Farm agreement includes basically all the same elements as the Brixton agreement did, in that they will pay the full cost for what portion of the new wastewater treatment plant they need. And in both cases, now Brixton and Lund Farms come together to motivate that second plant in a bigger way. And at whatever time, theoretically, we can build the plant and operate the plant solely to provide services to these two MUDs. And the MUDs will pay the entire cost for every part of that. What would seem to be obviously the smart choice for the city is when it comes time to pull the trigger on that new plant, we'll build it bigger than what Brixton and Lund Farms need, so we'll have added capacity at our plant. But this project, as I think you know, that's already our existing commitment at Brixton. But basically, our agreement says that when we don't have to start really building a new plant until they start building houses, and they're a long ways from that. And then plus, the agreement says they can build 200 houses, or I forget.
Specifically Brixton?
Yes, I can't
I
remember.
think Brixton is the new agreement that came back to the council. I think it's up to 400 homes.
I think that's right.
Uh,
So even when they start, they can build up to 400 homes, I think that's right, and still, there's still capacity in our existing plant to serve them. So similarly, Lund Farms will develop that way. So my main point is, because Brixton hasn't started, we haven't in the past, we've put off going out and buying land and starting that permitting process. But we do think, although we do think this project expedites that schedule, and it is a priority, as you know, in the 5-year capital plan, but we're gonna move that up our list to get to working on that. So, but we're not concerned about having enough treatment capacity if both of these projects move forward. I think you have to keep in mind that in both cases, we think we're, from today, where we stand today, we're probably 3 years away from having a plant up and operating. But given where both developments are, they're at least 2 years away from having anybody living in houses out there, I think, in either development. And as we said, there's a provision in the agreement that they'll be connected to the existing system, so we can allow them to get built, get started, and build some houses before we'll have to have this other plan. So we just want to stress the point that we have tried to put that off as long as we could, but this development agreement, I think, this project puts a little more pressure on us. Brixton says they're trying to get started. That's what they've been telling us. So we do think the end result is that we need to get, and when I say we, I mean the staff needs to get real serious about locating land and starting to make some definitive plans for the second treatment plant. The development agreement also includes donation of right-of-way along County Line Road, although the plan, our consensus is that Lund Road is the road that needs to be rebuilt. And we certainly anticipate that based on the traffic impact analysis, it will show that the development is driving a lot of that need. And so, like we have with other projects, I'd anticipate that the developer, the MUD, will have to pay a significant contribution towards upgrading Lund Road. But the important difference to keep in mind here is, unlike County Line Road, Lund Road is completely under the jurisdiction of Bastrop County. So although we put this in our development agreement and the developer specifically commits to helping fund that, if it's like any other project, the county is going to have to be part of that project and not think the total cost for the right road to be built out there will completely shift to the developer. So unlike we've seen before, we're going to need Bastrop County to step up to build the truly correct road out there, but that's something. What we're doing in this agreement is and the developer's doing, is making a specific binding commitment to be part of that project, but we don't have the same jurisdiction or discretion over that as we have had on our other projects. Master development fee is another standard that we talked about earlier. This agreement will produce almost just short of $3 million in master development fees for the city, unencumbered cash that we get to spend however we want. The same language is in this agreement that we started out with Harvest Ridge relative to contribution to the school district. At a minimum, the developer, when they're done, they'll have contributed $500,000 in cash, unencumbered cash, to the school district. We're hopeful that, and we've had preliminary conversations with the school staff, we're hopeful that we can work out a deal for another school site out here. The developer has indicated they're motivated to have that conversation as well. But it's not a specific element of this agreement, and we kind of run into the same problem we had before of at the end of the day, it's the school needs to be involved with making specific binding commitments, not so much the city, but this language that's in the agreement clearly indicates a willingness on the developer to have those conversations and how the basic framework of a deal like that would work. Just for the record, this site in the beginning is basically what is shown as multifamily here. And I believe that's probably why it's not as detailed as the rest of the development, is where we started out as a potential school site. So we go into this agreement with, I guess you could say, with the general location as a possibility. It's just for the purpose of the agreement. We don't want to specifically designate it as a school site when we can't exactly promise that's going to happen yet.
When would you know that?
When the developer and the school district get together. And the issue we've had before, as we've talked about, is the challenge here is the developer, well, let me start over. The agreement puts the discretion totally on the part of the developer. They can decide to either make the contribution we've thrown in there or to donate a school site. I think what the school has experienced lately has been one school site they had donated, one they had to buy. So whether or not it'll be donated or they have to pay for it, the school has also indicated they're not necessarily opposed to paying for a site if that's what they have to do. So, but part of the challenge always has been most developers, with residential developers like this, particularly this side, would love to have a school in their development. But they have to have a specific binding commitment and timing and things like that. It's only reasonable that they would expect that. The challenge the school district has is they can't make that kind of binding commitment until they have the funding. So that's the challenge we have. Now, what we've talked about is maybe a first right of refusal, or there's different things I think we learned from what we've gone through in the last year with the 2 new school sites that we can learn from. And I would say that's what we put this agreement in mind based on, that at this stage, it's extremely difficult for either the developer or the school district to make a specific business binding commitment about this school will be built within this time frame. So what the framework, the wording of this agreement says is the developer and the city are ready to get together with the school to try to figure some of those things out. But we can't take any more of a step than what we're doing in the agreement at this point, at this particular point in time. So just to run it down, this is our current count with the Lund Farms of where we're at on ETJ MUDs in the city. We've got 4 different ETJ MUDs that operate that are approved under this same kind of development agreement, as council knows. As Mary said earlier, that Elm Creek does not have the same type of development agreement. That's why, well, I'll just say that. There's 4 ETJ MUDs with Lund Farms, and then we have the 1 in-city MUD with Briarwood, the project being built around Niding Elementary School. Thank you. So that brings our count to just over 8,000 of home sites that would be on the books with the approval on the farms. The mayor and I were actually talking about this today, so I think this is true of all over Texas, certainly Central Texas. As we move forward, when we talk about population and housing, the city of Elgin's population is going to be significantly different than what we all consider the Elgin community to be. And so that's what this is. You're talking about 8,000 homes, you're a minimum 25,000, 30,000 people that technically won't be citizens of the city of Elgin, but they'll all be on our borders, they'll all go to our schools, they'll all be part of the community, which is why we recommend these agreements because they're going to happen anyway, and we might as well get what we can. Councilman Gibson and I actually were talking a little bit about today about this very point, so I made this slide so that we could address this issue of again, it seems counterintuitive that we talk about controlling growth, yet we approve developments like this with 2,000 homes. But as we've talked about before, I know council knows this, say it for the good of the order, but under Texas law currently, the city of Elgin literally exercises as much control as theoretically possible in the state of Texas. And if by control you mean stopping or slowing down growth, that's illegal. You literally cannot do that under the law in Texas. So the best we can do is try to embrace this development and get what we can out of it. And this is just some of the points. So one thing to remember, when we talk about a consent and development agreement, that means the city is consenting to this MUD moving forward. That's almost maybe one of the more crucial elements to the developer, because if the city doesn't consent to the ETJ MUD, then they have to go through the legislature to get approval. Now, they can do that, but that takes 2-3 years probably, and a whole process they have to go through. So that is actually one of the city's biggest leverage that we have to get these other benefits that we do from this development. That is really important. You can't underestimate how valuable that is to the developer. So while I'd like to say they do all these great things for us because I'm just a great negotiator, the truth is on that one point, it can be time consuming, and particularly in their business in this time, time means money, as they say. So it does give us leverage to get things like we do. But if we don't do the development agreement, the short answer is they can literally build this same project without us. They would pay no master development fees. They wouldn't make any commitment to the school district. The public, the parks and trails would not have to be public and open. That's what the development agreement says, that they're public and the citizens of Elgin could go out there and use them. Not the amenities, just the public areas. There'd be no land donation for the police or fire, no right-of-way donation on County Line Road, and you remember, or on Lund Road. You remember we just went through an episode where we had to acquire right-of-way on County Line Road, and that cost us almost $150,000. So I think easily in this agreement, the donation of the right-of-way alone is worth $200,000. The streets, drainage, sidewalks, our commitment to build at least to our standards. They wouldn't have to do that if they weren't for this agreement. There'd not necessarily be any commitment to help us fund a new sewer plant. A development this size could build their own small plant out there to serve it. Certainly, we wouldn't have any connection to the commercial property or the sales tax revenue if we didn't have this development agreement. And then also, certainly the developer will tell you this, that without the MUD financing mechanism, they can't afford to do all the amenities that they could otherwise do. Certainly, I think Harvest Ridge is a great example of that now, because one of the biggest reasons they have high-quality amenities out there is because of the funding mechanism that's provided through the MUD. So I know we get those questions, and I know it seems, like I said, that I don't think there's any necessarily disagreement that most people didn't move to Elgin hoping it would grow to 50 or 60,000 people. People live in Elgin because they like the small town, but we feel very confident that this is the best deal that we can make for the city. And I think we're getting to the point where if you see Harvest Ridge, you know Trinity Ranch, you see these projects clearly, our plan is worked out and that we're getting better developments than we might not otherwise get if you go to Elm Creek 2. That it does not have a development agreement that way. So I think you can even see just on the surface the benefits to the city and trying to embrace the developments, embrace the developers, and work together as opposed to kind of sticking our head in the sand about it, so to speak. So with that, that's basically the presentation. Boda, leave any big points out? So we, like I said, I think it's another project that we've been working on a long time. They're ready to get started. I don't think there's any question that this location became attractive to them because of the jobs that are happening on the north side. And so I think it'll be a really good project for us. We anticipate it being high quality, so a lot more homes, a lot more cars, a lot more people, but the city will benefit from it as well.
Developers, engineer, and planner are here as well, if you had specific questions, and I'm here. Any questions from city staff standpoint that you guys have as well?
I have a question, Mayor. Tom, you or Bo, you talked a lot about wastewater. What you did not talk about was water. And we will do a wholesale contract with them. And all the different cities that are in all the severe restrictions now. How is our water?
Our water, I think we had an email come out earlier today, is your water system, which I've gone through and shown in many different parts to it. What it comes down to ultimately is how much water do you have in the ground and your rights to the water for the city of Elgin. Even though we're seeing some of the highest usage that we've ever seen historically for the city, you guys, by the end of the year, may be approaching 25% of your total capacity that you're allowed in the ground water. Getting it from the ground to the treatment plant into the city, there would obviously be other infrastructure upgrades that are all you see in the 5-year capital plan over time. For this particular project, the negotiation and agreement would be that we would execute with Aqua is they would contribute the same $3,900 an acre to remove themselves from Aqua CCN and come into the city CCN extending 12-inch water lines both down 95 and County Line Road to tie into their system, and then they'd be responsible as part of impact fee reimbursement. They would actually build a new elevated tank for the city out there that would open up a different part of the town, which you guys currently can't serve if any development were to occur down Highway 95, commercial or industrial. It's not in your CCN, and you don't have any water infrastructure out there. But the baseline question, how is Elgin not in the restriction phase right now, as we've seen many of our counterparts all around, is because you've secured enough water permitting rights over the years, and your infrastructure has been built over the years with a master plan to be able to serve the community you have and then well into the future. And so, rest assured, you guys have the same things in plan. We've just not had to put any into place as of right now at this meeting.
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to provide clarity on is that the water itself, Elgin's in a really unique spot because the supply of water that's under us is plentiful. We don't have any issue that. We've talked about what's our projected use, but as Bo said, we're so down so far on our permitted levels. The supply of water, unlike every place else in Central Texas, is not the issue. If there ever will be a challenge, it's are we expanding the treatment plant fast enough? Are we digging enough wells? Or are we creating a system that can pull the water out of the ground and move it? But the water itself is there. The other interesting point to make on this, I think for us, is because I had a lot of experience with this before, it's never even come close to need to be talked about in Elgin, is now the water districts, typically, they're more focused on a big issue is demonstrated need. That it's not, you can't just go to Lost Pines and say, we'd like to have another 1 million gallons a year added to our permit. Now you have to prove to them that we have the houses that will demand that water. So it's a game even getting that permit changed, but we're in such good shape on that. That's not gonna happen for a while, but, we had the question about, do we have enough water for all this growth? Well, yeah, if we keep up with it, but our really, the main issue is our own systems that we can control, and not so much whether there's enough water in the ground or in the lake, where other cities are struggling, which is why, as you said, we haven't felt the need to even talk about watering restrictions yet. But as the mayor told me, he's driving around town, every yard's brown anyway, so I guess nobody's watering, so it doesn't matter. Bo, talk again about it real quick. One thing I left out was, this development will pay water impact fees, but the way it works is they'll make specific water improvements like the water tower, which builds up credit for them, so they're not, basically they're paying the impact fees kind of in advance by building these.
Unlike the wastewater, for water, they'll pay the impact fees just like anyone else, but as part of that credited impact fee back to them, for their system to work on the pressure and having storage and meeting TCEQ requirements and fire requirements, they need a certain size elevated storage. As part of this deal, they'll dedicate the land for the storage tank, an acre, to the city. They will build that elevated tank at a minimum 250,000 gallon tank for their development, utilizing an impact fee credit. So the city is not having to upfront that money for infrastructure that will be given to the city. If the city so chooses to oversize said infrastructure, we'll still be able to credit those impact fees that would otherwise be there to erect that tank to a certain size. That decision will be made later. Based on their engineers, what they've submitted to date, when you're saying what's the timing of that elevated storage, they need to have some sort of elevated storage in place before they hit the 400 total home mark. So it's to the front end of the development, not towards the back end of the development where you would see that kick in. One other portion that Tom did say, this would be your first wholesale water agreement with a MUD. All those homes that he did list there, none of those are on city water, with the exception of this one that's before you tonight, and the wholesale water agreements. Harvest Ridge, Trinity Ranch, Elm Creek, and Brixton would all still be acquiring their water from Aqua.
All that water comes out of the
But I
same
was
hole in the
fixing to
ground.
say, but kind of, don't we provide that to Aqua and then Aqua provides that to them, kind of, sort of?
That for right now, that is, once that line that's going in the ground up there on County Line Road is in service, then the city, that would be an emergency connection only at that point.
So, for the water, why is this development using our water?
So the development can kind of answer that, but in general, just where Aqua, if you're not aware, right now, Aqua has a moratorium. They're not issuing any meters whatsoever because they're already at their excess capacity. In addition, Aqua's infrastructure, even to get up to this site, they're kind of dead end at Harvest Ridge. Like right now, the city is selling water to Aqua that Aqua can turn around and sell to Harvest Ridge. And in general terms, you know, Aqua's, with the agreement that we have with the CCN, they're not known to be a retail provider of subdivisions, single-family subdivisions. They're still at heart in their base a rural water supply corporation.
And just real quick, Bo, just for clarification, what is a CC? Just for people who don't know what it is.
Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, which essentially says it is the city's ability to serve an area with water or sewer or aqua. So you have a CCN for sewer, which is the city's first right to provide service for sewer. Aqua has a CCN for water, and the city has a CCN for water. There are residents that are within city limits, Saratoga Farms, that entire subdivision is actually on Aqua water. It is not provided water by the city of Elgin. So their CCN, there was a court case many years ago where basically they're very strict lines on who can provide service.
But to be clear on that, we're compelled to make water and sewer available. If they're in our CCN, I'm just going back to the development control thing, that's another issue that I've had folks say, well, just refuse to give them water.
Yeah, and sorry, that was not my question. It was more, did our water get more enticing?
No, I just
Or-
wanted to make that clarification. No, again, it's the confusing thing, it's all the same water.
Their
But-
wells are in the same place your wells are coming from.
But also, this issue, Aqua's made it clear they don't support development, they don't try to work with developers. That's why a developer like this is willing to pay $230,000 to get into our service area versus Aqua. They know they can get the water from them. Now I'm getting into my own personal opinion. They know they can get the water from them, but they know how hard they are to deal with. And frankly, the city, like I said, our philosophy is try to embrace developments instead of fight it. And I personally think that's why all along the way, all the developers are willing to pay a substantial amount of money to get in our service area. It doesn't cost us anything. And as we talked about, we have the water.
And then another question, Bo. So the traffic impact analysis that's gonna happen for Lund Road, can you walk me through that a little bit? Because I'm really concerned about just,
So,
that's one thing.
so that's required for any development.
Mhm.
So they will have to do a formal TIA, and that will include Lund Road, and that will include State Highway 95, which is connected to. So a scoping document will be put together, essentially between the developer, TxDOT, the county, the city will be a partner in there. Well, they'll basically go through the report. It's a mathematics equation, essentially, looking at traffic counts and stuff like that. And they'll basically say, this is what our impact to Lund Farm Road would be, and if there was no road out there and we had to build a brand new road, this is exactly what we'd have to build for our developments. This is our impact. And you can derive a cost associated with said impact to make that improvement to the road. But as Tom was describing earlier, we went through this with Trinity Ranch. We know that there's X millions of dollars that of impacts on the roadway that will be approved. It may not get you a full county line road like the city is building in those areas. It may get you a bunch of turn lanes or just a chicken lane in the middle. It may not get you to the road you think should ultimately be there. And hence why Tom was saying that to get to that road that council may feel and residents may feel is deserved to be there as a whole, not 100% of that cost would necessarily be derived from the TIA for this particular development. The county at that time, to build it right the first time, would have to contribute funds at that point.
The basic theory of the TIA, where it works out this way, is that if we were building, Bo and I were building a both of us development on both sides of the road, and they basically had the same impact, he'd pay for half and I'd pay for half, and that's the way it gets done. But typically, it's rarely both happen at the same time, so usually, like in this case, whatever the road will be, it'll basically be the developer's impact to pay for essentially half of it. This is the same issue we've talked about, we have Trinity Ranch, as both saying, on Upper Elgin Road. We've secured through the agreement from the developer enough to build half that road probably, but it's a county road.
And where is
So
Bastrop
the county
County?
needs to step in to build the right road. Now, can
I
you
know.
build?
I'll let you know when I find it.
No, I think that's the point in the end. Can we take the money that the TIA will say the developer has to pay and build a road? Yeah. But, the only way we got the road, Bo's County Line Road's a good one, is because developers on both sides were contributing, and the city was filling in the blanks. So it's definitely gonna take a different kind of partnership than we've seen from the county before out there.
So people are gonna be able to go in through County Line and 95 into this development?
Yeah.
From Anlin Road.
Yeah, inland road. So my question is, with the already added construction on County Line, how's that gonna look if you're adding another development with even more material going down these roads? Like it's already
So-
traffic. high
So
traffic.
County Line
Oh,
Road,
no.
when you get north of Carlson Lane there, that's where the city ends and Travis County begins. So essentially where y'all's project ends right now today at the northern, at Ms. Lundgren's property and the intersection of Carlson Road, city ends right there. Everything north of that is Travis County. So they recently repaved County Line Road all the way on up. So Travis County, when I was talking about the TIA scoping document, everybody is there putting in what their input is based on their long-term. So they're dedicating the right-of-way for a future roadway expansion, but will it actually require a roadway expansion based on all the different traffic movements? We put the emphasis on Lund Road being the one that needs the biggest improvement as opposed to County Line Road, which is under Travis County's jurisdiction. We put Lund Road, which is a larger road up on essentially Bastrop County.
And I think what you're referring to is that, yeah, all those roads were originally built and designed to drive tractors down and then pick up with a horse trailer. I mean, all of them need to be upgraded. That's, I will say Travis County, obviously for the money, I guess, they do a little better job at it, but both sides, they're just gonna have to change their philosophy of what kind of needs they are because of things you're saying. Now, the roads we're building will handle the traffic you're talking about. Now, is the road Bo described going north gonna take a beating? Probably, yeah.
So we can't compel them to build the road outside of their development. Like this connector road that we're having, the developers build as they come from Carlson down to 290. That's because that goes through their developments, correct? And we can kind of say, when you're platting it, plan for this road so that they'll connect, right?
Right, we've essentially had everybody on both sides contribute to that, and then the city has filled in the gaps. So a lot of those subdivisions on County Line Road haven't contributed. Eagles Landing didn't contribute to any of those improvements, even though they had an impact at a certain time. The original phase 1, hadn't contributed just because it was already there. So that portion that you might see from COD, that essentially came from the city filling that in.
But I'm talking about those developments that are further west, that we've talked about, the connector road that is.
Right, they're
parallel
paying those,
County Line Road.
they're building that brand new major arterial through
Right.
those. So Briarwood,
North-south
Creeks
road, yeah.
Crossing, Eagles Landing Phase 5, they all have those agreements that have come through council basically agreeing that as part of those agreements, they're building a second county line road essentially that connects to 290 that runs in the north-south bound direction.
I think one of the points about this development we talked about, or when we started, we talked about continuing to extend County Line Road, but as you saw from the other map, there's a long stretch between current city and this on County Line Road. Lund Farms is, I think if I had to pick, it's worse than County Line Road out there right now. But to answer your question, I guess, literally, I'd say, we couldn't compel them to do it. Anything's possible through a development agreement like this, but at the same time, like we said, it's appropriate that the developer, any developer, pay for the impact their project is having on anything, but asking them to pay double what the impact is reasonable, so we're satisfied we're getting out of them what's appropriate on the road, but yeah, there'll be other work have to be done out there, no question about it.
And then I got one more question for you, too, I'm sorry.
And then I got questions. I'm waiting, I'm waiting.
So then going back, just from the conversation we had about the wastewater treatment plant, so we know we need to get aggressive about it, and you said that the developers are gonna be in charge of their portion that they impacted. How do we know how much they're gonna impact? Do we know that before, or we do already?
It's
a map
in
thing?
this agreement, it's written out, the math has already been done from an engineering standpoint, so they'll be responsible for extending the sewer line up Elm Creek that ends in Harvest Ridge right now. That'll provide service directly to their development. It'll also allow them to immediately be providing by the existing treatment plant, so that they could, if they get their infrastructure in and they go through all the plating, they can actually start building homes and selling homes in there at that point, and they would have wastewater service. The future portion, which is driven by the city, essentially, you building the second wastewater treatment plant, they're providing the funding for their portion that they need, requires two pieces. It requires the plans, which is the city would have to purchase the property, permit, engineer it, put it out to bid to a contractor to build, and then construct it, similar to what you're doing at the existing plant. And then there's a new sewer line that would essentially be from Elm Creek Lift Station to that new plant. For this agreement, they are gonna pay their pro rata share of what size line they would need. And again, that's all been calculated engineering numbers wise. And then the city has will actually be responsible for doing the design and building it, because that particular line would need to be a much larger size than what they would be required just for this development. So you still control that master planning of where that line would run and which other areas you would be servicing within your CCN south of 290 on the way to the second treatment plant.
Yeah, as you might imagine, the maximum that everybody will need, that's a math equation, we'll figure that out. For us, it's the timing of when do we really need it versus what can wait, so that'll be the challenge for us to figure out.
And Tom mentioned that both of the agreements with Brixton and them basically say the city isn't obligated to begin the process until they break ground with construction. And then you would be, depending on how fast they're going, you're on a very expedited schedule or whatnot. We feel that between this and Brixton, that the breaking ground will be coming sooner. It's not a 2 years down the road, we'll start looking at property. It could be within 6 months, where technically you're on the clock to begin your portion of the work, which means the city will have some very large decisions to make, like Tom said. Do we build just exactly what we need, or do we look at a more regional approach, and we build a plant that can service all the development along 290 to the west of County Line Road that currently can't have sewer, or is spending a lot of money to try to get it back over? How do you allow that area to develop in the future?
Yeah, but while we're on that, let's talk just a little bit about the funding mechanism. For both agreements, this funding of the sewer plant is a little different in that, so many of the master development fees and other fees are paid as they build, plat at a time, almost like a reimbursement to us. This concept requires an escrow fund be established, and for us to start, when we start, the developments have to immediately pay into that. So just want to make sure that while we're doing the work, we don't get upside down on cost. They're paying for it as we go. So it's not like we're going to incur $1 million, like County Line Road, where we had to advance fund that. And then the developers will pay us back over time. This project is that way. Now, what it gets to quickly is how much are we going to build the bigger plant, then we start incurring those costs. But yeah, when we say we're building it just for them, that's literally that way. city doesn't get upside down on the financing. Yes, ma'am?
All right.
What's your question? 'Cause
Well, I
mine
got
is a totally
several.
different subject.
Oh,
let's stay on this subject.
I mean-
Yours is related to this.
is not wastewater, but something else.
Mine's a school.
Go ahead.
School site.
Go
Let me go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think, Tom, I think you know what I'm gonna say here. Given, some of the history we've had in the past with, other developments, I would much rather prefer being some of those folks, but being a school district, representative, I'll say, that, any sort of land conveyance be conveyed directly to the school district rather than to the city. That, in my opinion, would help us to address some of the problems we've had in the past. Now, whether or not that's doable, I don't know. I realize the argument there about the district has little that they can bring to the table initially because of our timelines and our revenue sources and things like that. But I would like for us to think about that and consider those things to take the city out of that messenger role. Although I will say we're obviously very appreciative of what you and the city have done in working these agreements. The second thing I would say is with regards to the school contribution site and the grade levels and things like that, you know, our demographic study, I don't know if that has been considered or shared. I realize that there's a piece of this that's asking for an elementary site. That may or may not be possible simply because we don't know if we're gonna need a middle school out there. We don't know if we're gonna need a high school out there. It's gonna depend on the demographic numbers and the growth and the age groups that we have out there. Now, obviously, it's more conducive, more, looks better to have an elementary site in a new subdivision because that attracts new families, and so I get that. So that's not a negotiating piece. I respect that, and I respect the developer's right to assert that. Those are my two concerns with this. The rest of the information, I don't have a problem with. The potential site doesn't, I mean, all that, we know that can change, and especially, you know, the total acreage could change depending on the size of the school we need to build, depending on whether it's elementary or middle or high. So I want to put that out there, only for consideration for this and consideration for future projects as we continue to work with these developers, to have us as a city not be the intermediary between the school district and the developer. So that we can, the school district can come to the table and have our discussions with the developer about what potential we might need. So.
Yeah, I'd say, one, I guess, almost to your second question. To me, the way the agreement is written, it to me puts all those discussions in play about what school, what kind. I mean, it doesn't, again, remember, it basically says the developer has to do one or the other. And if they decide to donate a site, then I do think it's whatever they negotiate and finds acceptable to the school. I don't see the city having much play in that. So there's nothing in here that prevents that from happening, including the elementary school. I don't think that was a magic word in the agreement. It's just something that can be discussed.
But it could be anything.
And I mean, like any developer, I think you put the right project together, you know, they're gonna be open to that idea. I would say, you know, I've talked about this before, the provision that this property goes through the city to the council comes from my own prior experience. And one, I would ask the school district folks to remember, these are deals the city's making. These are the city's deals. And we're putting a lot into it. We're putting money into it. We're putting concessions into it, a lot of effort. And so the district, but like we talked about before, because of the way the district gets funds, it's extremely difficult for them to get really involved at that level at this point in the process. Also, my personal experience in the past has been that I hadn't had every council get along with every school board like we do here. And I've had situations where, and this is what I'm concerned about when I put that in there. If for whatever reason, the city council was totally opposed to whatever idea the school came up with of where they were gonna build, they should have the right to say, no, we're not giving you the property. Now, I don't see that happening, and I'm not saying it has to stay in there, I'm just explaining to you, that's where that comes from. But what is similar that I think is pertinent to what we're talking about today is to keep in mind that this is the same concept with the public safety sites. Every one of these MUDs have this same contribution of a 2-acre site to the city that will be donated to the city, that the city chooses how it gets used as a public safety site. In each case, because they won't be in the city police won't be using it. So obviously, be the sheriff's office or the fire department or somebody, but again, same situation. It's not a donation directly to the ESD. It's a donation to the city that we get to control, and so in the same way, I would expect before we hand that land over to the sheriff's office or somebody else, we would know what they're gonna do with it, and the council would agree to that. So it's a control thing, I admit it.
It is, and it's a control thing for us too. And I certainly respect
But
that.
again, we're the one making the deal. I think in the end, the council should have say over, so.
And I certainly don't want to cut the council out of it. I would like to see our school district involved earlier, even if we don't have the ability to bring something to the table.
Okay.
That's my ask.
And I think, and that's what I'm saying, I think the language in this agreement is loose enough where, yeah, all that can still happen.
So speaking about land conveyance, I was gonna ask about the public safety. Is that, we just have 2 acres for what we wanna do it? Well, I guess, what's the stipulation with it being public safety related to your point that that's not really gonna serve the city?
In my mind, not just this one, but the others, the city determines that, the city council. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that EMS, police services, personally, what I always envision is to be small substations that those groups share. That, in other states, the ambulance, fire, and sheriff all get together and work together, so. But at the same time, I mean, I've recently had conversations with an ESD board member to say, and they were saying they were looking for property, and I said, we've got this, but you gotta come forward with an idea of what you're gonna put there, so. Yeah, 2 acres we're not gonna be able to build a new police station, the 50-year police station we need there, but and also like this, the actual location is somewhat in flux, so, and I don't think, maybe we won't need these substations in every development, but we've reached a point where, yeah, we're ready to have that conversation, but again, I think frankly, it's up to those other entities to come to us and say, we want it, here's what we could do with it. Because it's the same issue as at the school. There's a time limit as far as the developer goes. They're not just gonna leave this 2-acre hole forever. There's gotta be a commitment from somebody to build something there. But whatever it is, I mean, that's the irony of the situation. Although it'll be outside the city's jurisdiction, whatever it is, due to this agreement, the city council will have final approval of it.
And then, also speaking of agreements, is it ever, talking about the, Lund Road improvements that will be needed, I don't know if Bastrop County has the authority to be able to sign on to an agreement like this? Like, has there ever been like a
Bastrop
three-way
County,
agreement?
The language related to Lund Road comes from Bastrop County's engineer.
But for them to say, to your point, I mean, I think to.
Well, do they have the ability to commit?
Yeah.
To it? Yeah. I don't know. I would presume they do. Frankly, I think they should be trying to do more of this stuff, but.
In
yeah, I
this
guess I don't
direction.
know that. Yeah, I don't know the answer to your specific question.
Is that something we can ask our attorney?
Sure.
I mean, I know
Yes, and-
counties have very little authority to do much, but I'm just curious about entering into an agreement like this, because what I foresee happening is that we get to the point where, yes, we need to build that road, and then the county says, well, we can't fund that. We don't have any money for that.
Well, something
what they're
will
about,
be built.
right?
The
Yeah.
impact-
Well-
Like I said, what you feel should be built and what they're responsible for building may not be the same thing.
Well, that's
And to
my
build what you
point about the
think they should
county. You know, embracing projects means you're trying to partner with them to get the right project. That seems to be a foreign concept to them. And if they did more of that, I think the end result would be more what we think of as control. If they tried to work with people, instead of looked at it, what can we make them do? That's a different question, or whether they
Yeah.
can work together. So, but I don't know if you've missed it, but both, the one difference in this agreement is from the other MUDs is this time, because the county, Bastrop County has a new county engineer and has had a little bit different approach to things. Bo went to him, and the language in here about their review and the TIA specifically came from them. So we can say we've literally put in the agreement what they asked us to put in the agreement, and the developers agreed to that.
For further discussion, so they
Yeah.
can't say that they were left out or anything.
That's right.
Okay. Sales tax, do we have an exclusive, will that be an exclusive agreement with the City of Elgin?
Right, we'll do the same strategic partnership agreement we've done before, where the developer well, it's not the developer, the property owner today specifically commits to have that property annexed to the city solely for purposes of sales tax collection. And so, once that's done, there's not any future issue that can affect that. That achieves the first in time issue.
And then, I think will be my last question. We can't annex them because there's no spot annexation, is that right? Or am I
We're not,
misinterpreting that?
well, we're not contiguous.
That's what I mean, yeah.
And, yeah, and it'd be and you can't do those strips out to get them anymore. But it is a good example of,
And I think, yeah,
then we can't force anybody between here and there to annex.
because I think going back to that slide you had about kind of, if we don't do this, what are the drawbacks? You know, for folks saying, well, just annex them, we don't have
That's
the
correct.
ability to do that.
That's
There's
correct.
no-
Well-
There's no such thing as involuntary annexation anymore.
Yeah, and the reason why you do a MUD is so you don't have to do that.
But to answer your question, I mean, they're still beholden to the standards of the city as part of this agreement. As you guys know, there's no zoning in the county. And what a county subdivision is required to do, they just went and did just a regular old subdivision in the county that's completely different than what you would expect from a city subdivision.
But yeah, I will say this, though, that we would certainly hope, you know, when we look at the other big map, that, you know, we're looking to this development to start spurring other development along the 95 corridor there. And so, you know, a few different tracks, we might be able to be out there pretty soon. And so,
Well,
you remember the Larson tract here, we met with Pulte Homes, the builder, they said they're gonna be building that, can I get the spot, that roadway that comes out to here and makes an intersection there, 95, and then of course, a big part of this project is getting the water line up there, and sewer service along there, so creates a whole different opportunity for all those properties along there, so, if we can't get them to annex, this kind of agreement's the next best thing.
So that actually spurs one question, but the 20-year agreement, is that pretty standard?
Yeah, this is the same that's come from all of y'all's development agreements.
To not annex?
No,
How
I
long
think
the development agreement holds
Oh,
true,
oh, yeah, yeah,
length of it,
yeah.
with extensions, that's pretty standard.
Yeah. They're definitely gonna have it all built in 20 years. If they don't have it built by then, they won't be happy. Yeah, it's not a two-part agreement like Elm Creek, so.
Well, thank you for your answers. I'm glad to see that we all fired the same emails back and forth about the water. My only concern was, once the water grab takes off, and then, I don't know, is the level of the aquifer going to fall, and that going to affect our quantity of water?
No, so as I think some emails went out, the groundwater district is fully engaged right now between the city and Aqua and a couple of other people that are all within the same aquifer, and then you're pulling out groundwater rights. It's not a very long list, let's put it that way, of people that are pulling out of that particular aquifer. But the intent is, as long as you're able to protect your existing rights on there, which the city is fully engaged on making sure that your rights are protected, that it becomes a need basis from it. We couldn't go and double the amount of water we wanted out of supply just because. Those days are gone. We'd actually have to prove up that there's an end user and how we're going to utilize that before they would allow us. But again, as you kind of look right now, is you have 3 wells right now that are operating out that. You're drilling your 4th one currently. I mean, you could literally be closer to 10, 12, 14 wells before you ever were pulling out the max amount that you could there. So our main thing is to continue to stay fully engaged with the groundwater district and to make sure that they're not limiting what the city already feels our vested rights and what we already have guaranteed footage out of the particular aquifer at this point in time.
Yeah, and to your specific question, Chuck, the truth is, it's the Lost Pines district, that's their job to say how much water's in the ground. And where the level is.
That was just my one
So
concern.
when we go for an application, or anybody does, you present the engineering that says, we think it's down there, but in the end, they're the ones that do all, that's really their whole purpose, is to manage and protect the aquifer and make sure that what we're all collectively drawing out of there won't drop that level to dangerous levels for us. So that's why we work through them.
Okay, any more questions? Entertain a motion?
I make a motion, we pass,
Okay.
that everything is listed on.
It's one way to put it. Do I have a second? Okay, so it's been moved and second, and we'll begin with Councilmember Love.
Love, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes?
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, no.
Slade, yes.
Thanks, that was a really good discussion.
Okay, going on to number 4, resolution of the City of Elgin authorizing an agreement with Lund Farms Utility District for wholesale water service.
So the consent and development agreement we just passed, like with all our other developments, specifically states that we'll come to a separate agreement about water and wastewater. Items 4 and 5 are just that. They just provide the specific details of how and where and how much water service and wastewater service we provide. But it's, from a big picture standpoint, these are just detailed agreements relative to what we just got done talking about. So is there anything specific that needs to be pointed out?
The main thing for you to envision is, the city is not a retail provider. You will not have a meter at every individual household. You'll have a single meter for the entirety of the MUD, maybe 1 or 2 other smaller meters, but essentially you're not providing retail service. All of the water lines within the MUD will be private, responsibility to be maintained and operated by the MUD. You're simply giving them essentially 1 bill per month. Very similar on the water side to what you guys are doing on the wastewater side. If it be Elm Creek, if it be Trinity Ranch, if it be Harvest Ridge, single bill for an amount of usage.
And of course, it means the MUD sets their own rates we don't necessarily have control over them, but again, outside the city.
So we don't get another black eye.
That's right.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the resolution 4 in new business.
Okay. And your second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second, and we'll begin with Mayor Pro Tem Brazier.
Brazier, yes?
McShane, yes?
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, no.
Swain, yes.
Love, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Okay, motion passes, and then we move on to number 5. This is a resolution of the City of Elgin authorizing Lund Farms mud wastewater service agreement.
Just as we said, nothing really to add. This is more standard and consistent with, as Bo said, each one of our MUDs have a wastewater agreement, just like this one.
And within our water, our wastewater CCN.
That's right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I hear a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second, and we'll start with Councilmember Kaczynowski.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, no.
Swain, yes.
Love, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Brazier, yes?
McShane, yes. Okay. 6, a resolution of City Council of the City of Elgin, Texas, placing a proposal on September 5th, 2023, and September 19th, council meeting to adopt a 2023 tax year proposed property tax rate that will not exceed the no new revenue tax rate. Does that say wrong? For
Yes.
some reason, I got a tongue tied on that. Okay. Tax rate.
You know, I thought there was a hipster party here tonight.
This is the .47.
So, well, I was just looking that up. Jennifer, do you remember, we're advertising the higher number, correct? Oh, no, we're not advertising a number. The 49? What the budget is built on. Okay. So we're compelled to put an ad in the paper saying that we're going to vote on this tax, and it also, we're also compelled to put down how each one of you voted on it. So that's really what this is about. We're not setting the tax rate today. We're just saying this is just, again, part of the system that we're compelled to say this is what we think we're gonna adopt. Which, by the way, for the good order, is a reduction in the current tax rate. Our tax rate has continued to go down over the last few years.
Thank you, I was waiting for that. Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the resolution, new business number 6.
I'll second.
That's been moved in second. We'll begin with Mayor Pro Tem Brazier.
Brazier, yes?
McShane, yes?
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Love, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Motion carries. We don't have an executive session.
Nope.
That means we- Announcements? Announcing clerk, please, come on.
We don't have many announcements, we're gonna see each other next Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right.
Tomorrow is the first day of school for Elgin ISD. Please drive slowly around this city with these kids and wish all of our kids and parents a good first day.
Safe and productive.
There you go.
Okay, it is, by that clock, 9:55.
54. 8:54.
I mean, 8:54, Lord have mercy, all I'm seeing is the 9. Adjourn.